you all please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Have a roll call, please.
Mr. Burns?
Here.
Mr. Cook?
Here.
Mr. D'Andriano?
Here.
Mr. Rogan?
Here.
Mr. Griffin?
Yeah.
Sorry, Sean.
If I could just ask for everyone's indulgence for a couple of seconds. There's a couple of things I'd like to, before we really start the meeting. Number one, tomorrow is 9/11, and it's a national tragedy. And in a second, I'm going to ask everybody to get up and observe a moment of silence for that. But on a more personal note, and I don't know how many people are aware of it because it didn't really make much in the way of news, at least up here. A young man from Carmel who was a Charleston police officer was killed in the line of duty a few days ago. Carmel graduate, and he's a relative of some of the staff and people. I think Pete knew him from school. And he left behind 3 very young children. So if you'd all just please rise and just observe a moment of silence for those 2 scenarios. The deputy was Joe Mataskovic, and he was a very good guy. He was a young man. He was in his early 40s, and he's going to be missed by a lot of folks, and especially his kids. So. Thank you. Okay. If there are no objections, I'll ask the clerk to file the reports as read. Can I get a motion on the minutes, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from August 13th. Actually, I can only do August 13th. I wasn't at the other meeting.
What are you doing? You still have to vote?
I'll make the motion for August 13th and August 21st. So moved.
I second.
Okay. Is my agenda different from everybody else's?
I'll make a motion for June 25th, 2014.
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't.
You don't have that one. Whoa.
I thought he was
Which is the real deal?
Sorry, Sue.
Oh.
She gave me the revised one.
Oh.
We got it.
Okay, so motion been made and seconded on the 3 sets of minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Except I'll
As
abstain
abstains?
from the special meeting of the 21st.
Okay. Order the bills, please.
I will make a motion to Town Board approve abstract number 15, dated August 13th, 2014, in the amount of $590,834.35. So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Burns?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mr. D'Andriano?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Okay, then I will make a motion for the Town Board to approve abstract number 16, dated August 27th, 2014, in the amount of $141,312.76. So moved.
Second.
Again, could I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Burns?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mr. D'Andriano?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes. Mr. Cook.
Okay. First on tonight's agenda is an announcement again on the community tag sale be held at the Patterson Recreation Center on September 20th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. For information, call the rec center at 878-7200. Thank you. Next is an update on the closing of the railroad crossing here for work, platform work. Was originally going to be scheduled for this weekend. It's now the following weekend. Coordination between MTA and DOT postponed it for 1 weekend. So it's the weekend of, let me think, 19th, 20th, 21st, and maybe the morning of Monday the 22nd. So can breathe easier this weekend, but the following weekend, be aware. There will be detour signs up directing people around to Route 164 and coming off at 292, and there'll be plenty of signs.
Well, let's hope the DOT puts up plenty of stuff.
Next is the Veterans Hall of Fame celebration, and this event is now scheduled for Thursday, November 20th, 2014. It will be held at the Mahopac Falls Elementary School, 100 Myrtle Avenue, Mahopac, and registration will begin at 5 p.m. and the ceremony will start at 6 p.m. If anyone has a nominee, a veteran, who they think deserves recognition, please contact the supervisor's office for the appropriate nomination form. Thank you.
That's before October 5th, is it the deadline?
Good man, yes. Yes, prior to October 5th. Okay, next is an appointment to the Zoning Board of Appeals to fill the unexpired term through 2015, and I will make a motion to for the town board to appoint Stephanie Fox of Roseland Brewster, but as she explained, this is the second house from the end of Patterson, which has the Brewster post office address. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
That's it.
Okay, first item on my agenda, we received, the town received a letter from a Mr. and Mrs. DeFrancesco who live on Dalton Drive, or I'm sorry, they live on Dalton Drive in Cortland Manor, but they own a piece of property on Addison and Canton Road. And the town board had asked Mr. Williams to do an assessment of the property for feasibility of whether or not the town has a use for this property. I understand the owners would like to either sell it or give it to the town. Mr. Williams provided a memo which states that there's minimal environmental constraints on the property, but that his opinion was that the best use of the property may be for stormwater management. And I don't know if, Rich, if you were saying that you recommend that the town use it for that, but that seems like that's what you were saying. It would be the use that most fits for that property.
Correct. I evaluated it for a number of different uses, including recreation, and based on the size, location in the town, accessibility, and condition of the property, nothing else really seems to fit. However, there is a fairly good drainage area. As you know, we're obligated to provide a number of stormwater retrofits every year. We can pick up a lot of the road drainage and drainage from the residential properties around, so it seemed it might have some value there. Again, whether it's going to be a good value depends on, what it's going to take to acquire the property. But yeah, I didn't see very many good uses for the property other than that.
Do you think there would be any usefulness to any adjoining lots to have that property, if they were so inclined to either purchase it or?
There are certainly a couple of houses that border the property that could make use of the property. I would assume that the property owner, and perhaps it's an incorrect assumption, but I would assume that the property owner had reached out to the adjacent property owners prior to contacting the town. But certainly, anytime you can combine lots over in Putnam Lake to make bigger lots that give them more options for locating wells and septics on the already developed lots is a positive thing.
I think the question becomes whether or not, what the feasibility of it is. If they're looking to sell this to the town, what that cost would be. If they're looking to donate it, that's a whole different idea. But the assessment on it shows a property value of about $35,000. So they're paying tax based on that. And
I would say if they want to donate it, take it. I'm not in favor of purchasing property.
correct, I agree.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah, I don't think we need more property to manage.
Yeah,
Take
I-
care of.
But I also think it brings up a point. We don't know whether the owners have reached out to the neighbors, but it might be, that might also be an option that that would then roll into the assessment. Maybe not for $34,000, but for some amount under the assessment of an adjoining property. So, you know, I don't think we're in a position to do anything with this, obviously tonight, but just, Rich, maybe you could communicate to the owner that.
Well, I could, but generally, the next step is going to be for the supervisor's office, whether it's Mike or myself or Sue, to reach out to the property owner and get clarification about what they're looking for. You know, see what potential offer they might consider, and you know, see what you know, whether they have reached out to the property owners.
Right.
But I think that's really the direction you need to go, is have a dialogue with the property owner and come back to the next town board meeting.
What are the taxes that are currently being paid on the property?
Well, about $330 in town taxes. So
It's about so
so, yeah, about $1,000.
600 in school taxes.
Yeah.
Okay.
it's, you know, and then the other question would be that if we do pursue this, I assume we would have a public hearing to make sure that the impacts that might be to the adjoining property owners are that we at least receive concerns that they might have, because you know, stormwater sounds great, but it may be aesthetically unpleasing to neighbors, and we might have issues with that as well. So I just think we need to. I don't think we need to be too quick in this process.
True, but you might want to wait till you actually know, you know, we can throw it in the program. It may be a year or so before it's evaluated. We have actually an idea what they're going to do with it, if anything.
Okay.
We may, you know, if we throw it in the East of Hudson Corporation, they may come back and say it's just not cost effective once they've evaluated, you know, the drainage improvements that need to go in. So.
Okay. Okay, move forward.
Please.
Okay.
It's your agenda.
The next item on my agenda is a vacancy on the planning board. I do want to start out by saying that we interviewed this evening 4 really fine candidates for this position. And I wish we had 4 openings, quite honestly, because I think that that we interviewed some people that would really help the town. Having said that, one seemed to stand out, and I'd like to make a motion to fill the unexpired term through 2016 on the planning board with a Mr. Robert Ladau, Ladau. So moved.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, the third item I have is the Mancini subdivision variance request. This is a subdivision that is before the planning board, and in essence, the property is in an overlay zone, and in order to proceed, they need a variance from this board to allow the lot size that they're creating, that they're breaking off of the larger lot, which I think the lot is around 100 acres, and they're looking to subdivide off one lot, and that lot is going to be 5.1 acres. The overlay zone requires the lots to be around 2 acres. The planning board made a positive recommendation on this, that it is furthering the essence of the overlay zone, which is to preserve open space. It's certainly doing that by preserving about 95 acres. And so I would like to make a motion in this regard to set a public hearing for our next meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Would you like me to wait for announcements? Do them later? Or?
Well, you can do them now.
Okay. Okay.
While everybody's still fresh and paying attention.
Okay, pay attention. These are good announcements. On
Be a test.
tomorrow, September 11th, most people probably know, but the Brewster Lodge, the Brewster Elks Lodge, will be having a 6 p.m. candlelight vigil and a 911 memorial service, rain or shine. That's Route 22 and Milltown Road in Brewster, New York. On September 15th, from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Putnam County Golf Course, there will be a Putnam's Best Chefs and Fine Wines event, and this is to benefit the United Way. If you'd like to find out more information, you can contact Peter West at 914-997-6700, extension 732 for that event. That's a great fundraiser. On Saturday, September 27th, 2014, the Putnam County Health Department will be hosting a hazardous waste cleanup day. The event is from 9 a.m. to noon, and pre-registration is required. So if you're interested in bringing your household chemicals to that event, you must pre-register by calling 845-808-1390, extension 43150. And that's a free event. Get rid of those household chemicals that have been laying around your garage for 20 years. And I think, unless I missed one, I think that's it.
Well, the only other one I would mention is we do have a budget meeting, a work session on Monday at 3 p.m. It also happens to be the same date as the sheriff's golf outing. So for any of you that are golfing, you will be missed. So.
What a segue.
But if you want to go to the dinner, it's about around 5 o'clock. It's $100. First item on my agenda is if everything went according to plan, everyone should have gotten a copy of the tentative budget for 2015. Is that the case?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Now, would you gentlemen like me to read the budget message, or do you want to read it for yourselves at a later date?
Highlight it.
Yeah, I think it's worth reading into the record. It's a
Okay.
pretty positive message this year.
Trish did a terrific job, and everybody along with her. We have the tentative budget message. We have successfully met the state's mandated tax cap, which has been 2% or less for the last 3 years. This year, the tentative budget is slightly below the 1.56% allowable increase. As we move into the budget process, I'm pleased to report that we had a very successful year. Due to the efforts of our very conscientious staff and dedicated department heads, virtually every town department is under budget on their expense lines, and several are over budget on their revenue lines. For the past 5 years, the town's biggest single source of revenue, mortgage taxes, has remained at mid-1990 levels in the low 200,000s. I don't foresee an improvement for 2015, and at the same time we have seen significant increases in health insurance coverage and anticipated an additional 8 to 10% again increase in health insurance for this year. However, we have seen a decrease in our contribution to the New York State pension plan. We went from 21 cents, it's down to about 19 cents on the dollar. For the general fund, besides some improvements in the revenue lines, we've also reduced our debt service. We have completed paying off the landfill closure bond, which was the first project I was here for in 1994. So that's a $60,000 annual savings. We are also starting to see the benefits of refinancing that this board approved last year. This year's budget reflects a reduction of $117,000 in annual debt service. The tentative budget has a $50,000 contingency line, as well as a significant capital improvement line of $550,000, which will pay for the Putnam Lake Dam improvements, the much needed maintenance and repairs to the exterior of the town hall and the interior of the recreation center, as well as a new salt shed for the highway department. Tentative budget reflects an overall personal services line payroll increase of 1.2%. However, the standard raise for non-union employees is 3%. How that was accomplished was we have some people that have been replaced. Building inspector, the new one came in at a slightly lower salary, and we've had some changes in personnel, which have allowed us to keep the number at 1.2, but give 3% raises. There are some employees who are getting larger increases due to an upgrade in job skills, increased responsibilities, and outstanding performance. The combined general and highway fund budgets represent a 0.49% increase over last year's budget. The remainder comes from increases in some of the smaller funds like the lighting districts due to rate increases, but the predominant driver of the additional increases is from the fire departments. Justice Court's revenues remain very strong, and the judges have requested an increase for their senior clerk, which is reflected in the tentative budget. The budget also includes replacing Judge Mollet's clerk, as well as keeping the 2 part-time assistants. Highway budget, while the winter was harsh, but Russ did a great job. We did not use all of the budgeted overtime, and subsequently that money will fall to the fund balance. Highway superintendent has received notice of award of a grant that he applied for from Dasney in the amount of $150,000 to build a new salt shed. The total cost of the shed will be approximately $370,000. I'm making a recommendation to the town board that our contribution of $220,000 be in the form of a bond anticipation note for a minimum of 3 years, after which we can determine whether a long-term bonding is appropriate or we want to continue with a banding process that we could pay the balance off in a much shorter period of time. Due to sound fiscal management by Highway Superintendent Russ Goff and barring a very stormy finish to 2014, the Highways fund balance should increase significantly. Also, Russ had sufficient funds to purchase 2 new large trucks, thus saving thousands of dollars in interest costs and bonding fees. So, Russ, great job. And of note, the CSEA contract is in its final year, and negotiations should most likely commence in 2015. Sanitation services in February of 2016, the SaniPro contract for Putnam Lake area will expire. The board may want to give some consideration as to how garbage will be handled townwide after that point. Garbage District 2 in the Hamlet area side of town has municipal pickup. With the end of the current CSEA contract and the need to replace aging equipment, the board may wish to evaluate all options going forward. I would recommend having bid specifications prepared and ready for October 1st of 2015. In conclusion, this budget is below the state-mandated 2% tax cap. The tentative budget represents a 1.5% increase in the tax levy from 2014. It will require the use of $41,618 from the general fund balance and a use of $264,000 of fund balance from the highway fund. The tentative budget reflects a 6.13% increase requested by the Patterson Fire Department and a 3.65% increase from the Putnam Lake Fire Department. I'm very pleased to present this budget to the board tonight, and I'd like to recognize Patricia Brooks, our town controller, for an absolutely outstanding job and for putting up with me having rearranged the deck chairs so many times to get to the point where we're at. So that is the budget message for this year. I am very satisfied that this is a very workable budget. I know Mr. Williams has already pointed out a couple of deficiencies to me that he will be asking the board to work on, but that will start. It's your budget from here on out, boys. One day it's all yours.
Well, maybe Mr. Williams can join the work session and...
Oh, I'm sure he will be there and ready to roll.
I don't know that I will be here.
For the work session?
Think about it.
Is golfing?
It's a waste of...
Personal issues.
Are you? I didn't realize you were going.
Yeah, maybe not.
Okay, well then if you would prepare a memo for the board's consideration, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. I wasn't sure how that was going to work.
Well, that doesn't mean we won't have another work session, Mr. Williams. Ain't paying attention.
Nah, he's focused on other stuff. So the budget will be available in the clerk's office, and I believe it'll be up online. So anybody wants to take a look at it, feel free. Town Justice requests salary increases. We have a memo, as I mentioned in the budget message. We had a request from the judges, and Trish has been working with the judges. Judge King has requested that they would like an increase for Tammy Smith, who they consider now the senior clerk since the resignation of Judge Molay's clerk. Due to the dynamics of the Justice Court office and the court clerk substituting for each other, it's been determined that an hourly rate is best for both positions at this time. A number of reasons, which include overtime court hours, training new clerks, and working without a position filled, have gone into making a determination. Therefore, the court has informed me that the 2014 salary request is will be at an hourly rate for Tammy Smith of $22 per hour. $20.95 was the original budget for a more experienced senior clerk. Their budget, this is for starting now, and this request is by the courts also to be retroactive to when the position was vacated. The additional compensation is requested for taking the responsibility for both positions during the past 6 months. The court further requested that the 2015 budget reflect an hourly rate of $22.66. This has been taken into consideration in the tentative budget. I have calculated the costs of the retroactive pay from $321.14 at the requested rate of $22 per hour, and the amount comes to $2,586.07 through the payroll ending of August 30th of 14. It's my opinion the Justice Court payroll budget will be able to absorb this amount of retroactive pay, and they will still not utilize their full payroll budget for 2014. So basically what this comes down to is Tammy Smith has been clerking for both judges. She's been working a tremendous amount of overtime as well as training replacements. So the judges felt it was reasonable to bring her salary up to $22 an hour. I don't have an issue with it. And they also asked that it be retroed back to the time when she started taking on both judges' responsibilities. So I'm going to open this up for discussion, and then I would like to make a motion on it. But at this point, if anybody's got anything they'd like to comment on it.
I mean, they're within their budget. They certainly have shown that they've been strong on revenues for the last year. I know we had some skepticism at the end of last year when we were going budgeting as to whether we're going to continue to see that. I don't see how. I don't think we should turn them down. I think that's appropriate.
And this will be corrected through the next budget cycle. The salary will be commensurate with the work, and
yeah, the 2015 tentative budget reflects a hourly salary for Tammy Smith at $22.66. That's the $22 with a 3% raise. So what I'd like the board to consider tonight is immediately raising her compensation rate to $22 an hour and retroing it back to March when she began doing all of the clerk work for both judges,
right,
as well as training replacements. So I mean, she's doing a great job. They're basically caught up over there. She's been putting in a ton of hours, and frankly I think it's only fair compensation.
it's a small price to pay.
I also
for
wouldn't
such
want to
great
lose
work.
her to another court if
Well, that's the other consideration. She's had a pretty lucrative offer from Pauling, but she does a great job for the town, and judges are both very, very happy with her work, and she really knows the job very well, and it would be difficult to replace her.
I'd like to add, while the request came in from Judge King, Judge Mollet also put a letter of recommendation in as well, and I think that's important to note. So, I support that.
Okay, Charlie, you all right with it? Kevin, you good?
Fine.
Pete?
Yes.
All right, this time I'd like to make a motion that we approve the Justice Court, the judge's request, Justice Court increase for Tammy Smith, Senior Court Clerk, to an amount of $22 per hour, retroactive back to March of this year, for an amount not to exceed $2,580. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Approved. Drug and alcohol policy. Yes, this is truly water up here, so we're not violating the policy. The town's personnel director has brought to my attention the fact that our current alcohol and substance abuse policy is woefully inadequate, as per all the rule changes that she does a very good job keeping up with. Basically, we have a letter from our HR public sector HR consultants, and conducting tests for controlled substances and alcohol usage is only one component of meeting DOT regulations set forth in the employer's obligation to promulgate policy on the misuse of alcohol and the use of controlled substances. Anyway, to make a long story short, Sue took it upon herself to get a proposal from public HR, and they have offered to work with Sue to upgrade the policy for professional services as specified for an amount of $1,200 plus mileage. So at this time, I would like to go along with the Personnel Director's request that we bring our controlled substance and alcohol testing policy into compliance with current regulations, and that we authorize public sector HR consultants to do that for an amount not to exceed $1,200 plus mileage for travel. So moved.
Second for discussion?
Sure.
Just a
Yes.
question. Item 6 on the sheet that we received, the proposal says educate supervisors on significant provisions of DOT regulations. Might we also ask that if they're going to educate our supervisors, that they do an educational session, even if it's just the first time, with the people, the DOT driver, or what's the word I'm looking for? The people that, no, not the employees, but because it's not every employee necessarily, it's the ones that have the CDLs, that's the word I was looking for. I understand this sounds like getting us up to speed, so we won't need these people for forever. This is just to get us into compliance, and I think it's money well spent.
Yeah, it's just to basically update our current policy and get our handbook into compliance with the changes in the regs. I have to thank Sue because she's been staying on top of all of these things for quite some time now, and she was the one who brought this to my attention, that we are out of compliance and we need to fix that. So
I was just thinking that the training would be a great peer trainer if they can develop that in a way that then will teach some of our supervisors. Awesome. Thank you.
This will prevent headaches from down the road, I think, for things.
So when do you think they would have the policy ready for your review, our review? Okay, thank you.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're going to do it. I got a correspondence from my good friend Warren Lucas, who's the supervisor in North Salem, and they are contemplating passing a local law, and this is, I want to run this by you, Don, because this is something you're going to have to tell me. The local law will allow the town to set up a do not knock list, which people have to proactively sign up for. That makes it legal. Once they can, we can tell solicitors they cannot go to certain places or people's doors, but they do not lose the right to solicit in the town altogether. Basically, our town code requires peddlers to get approval from the town clerk. As the National Do Not Call Registry works, I don't know that it works all that well because I get called all the time anyway. But what this would do is to give town, if you want to consider it, we give the town residents the opportunity to register with the town clerk's office to say, I don't want people soliciting for me. Please put me on the registry. They would fill out a form, and then anybody who came in to get a peddler's license or to get permission to solicit would be handed the list and said, these are the places you cannot go. So I just thought I'd throw it out for conversation and legal opinion, but Warren is seriously contemplating it for North Salem. It's already been adopted in Lewisboro and a number of other Westchester towns. So
It's
not
all-
that we're trying to compete with Westchester, but
It's only commercial solicitations. It wouldn't preclude political or religious. Yeah, it wouldn't preclude religious or political solicitation.
well, I think that's probably true, but I would defer to legal counsel to craft something that would be within the framework of what is and isn't First Amendment protected. And that
We've done the initial research on it to determine that is in fact
Can you
the
guys
case.
hear him?
The Supreme Court has held that the First Amendment rights cannot be curtailed by the town. So political and religious solicitation cannot be precluded. A homeowner could, however, do so by putting up no trespassing or no soliciting signs on their property. This law would relate to commercial solicitations, peddlers and the like. And the law has, it appears that there'll be no problem with it. We do want to look at the draft that North Salem sent over. I know they're moving forward with it last night. One of the things that I think was important in their mind, I just happened to be at the town board meeting, was how to disseminate information to the public and make sure there's an efficient method for signing up for the do not knock registry.
Easy, go around, knock on the
They
door.
actually, yeah.
We'd have to go to their house
Well,
and do it.
it was prompted in North Salem by someone wanted to go around soliciting the sale of burglar alarms.
Yeah.
So they were actually going to go knock on people's door and ask if they had alarms and whether or not they would be interested in one. So that's what prompted it. They spoke of a couple of apps that are apparently used for sign-up convenience. So it might be something to check with Ronnie Halley down there, because they started looking into it. But we'll look at the draft law that they sent to us and comment on it, and assume maybe next meeting be able to set a public hearing on it if the board is in favor of it.
Antoinette, do you issue the peddler's license now if they come in? So the list would then have to come through your office.
And to that, how many peddlers permits do we issue?
We don't have that many.
I didn't think so. I
No, we don't have that
yeah.
many. Mostly they're, the ice cream and...
A vending vehicle, but they're not knocking on someone's door.
We have a
That's-
couple of those,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mike, do your office receive complaints from people?
No, not that many. I mean, I've had some questions because, especially in the last probably month and a half, 2 months, apparently there's been a lot of Jehovah activity. And one of the agreements we had with Jehovah's when they built their facility in town was they wouldn't use Patterson for practice. And it turns out that these folks aren't from Patterson. They are from other Kingdom Halls in the vicinity. So unfortunately, our no practice rule didn't apply to them. So they came to my house. They were very pleasant. And when I explained to them that I was a born-again Christian and wasn't interested, they left. So,
Just don't see the need if
No,
there's
just-
no problem. I mean,
no, I wouldn't.
I
But-
think looking at a law enforcement perspective, I know my job, and there's a lot of burglaries where, and we even had it here a couple of years ago. I don't know if everyone remembers. There was a group walking around trying to sell vacuum cleaners, and one guy would knock on the door and talk to the homeowner and throw dirt on the floor and say, "Look how great this vacuum cleaner is." The other guy would go to the rear of the house and either try to get in or scope it out, or once you're in the house, you're in the house, and you could, not only are they trying to sell a vacuum cleaner, they're also looking around and seeing, you're single mom, you don't lock the back door, looking around, casing out the joint. So
Well, that and in North Salem, the big scam was, do you have a burglar alarm and would you like to buy one? Well, I'm not sure they really wanted to sell you a burglar alarm, but now they know for a fact whether you do or you don't have one.
there's a lot of scams that go on with people, peddlers knocking on doors. And
For a while, there were
Wanna be
groups of
peddlers.
kids who were dropped off in neighborhoods to sell magazines. A couple of years
magazines,
ago.
candy bars.
Yeah.
There were groups coming from the Bronx, and they would just drop them off, and they'd go to Sam's Club and buy the candy bar pack and drop them off, and they'd go around put some tears in their eyes, and
Yeah.
they'd even have like a fake thing about how they have a basketball program and stuff that was all bogus and make a lot of money. I think it's a good idea.
I'd be concerned about creating something that was cumbersome, that was creating work for a problem that sounds like we may or may not even have. But so I would just say that we should, if we do this, we should craft it in a way that doesn't add burden to Antoinette's job and make it a very simple. Because I agree with what you said. I don't think the do not call registry works. I've signed up for that 3 and 4 times with different phones, and they say you can then report the number. And in fairness, I haven't done that, but
It's like unsubscribing to spam.
yeah,
That doesn't work either.
Yeah.
All right, well, it's, the consensus is if you want to have the attorneys do a little bit of research on it, and we can certainly throw it out to the general public and see what their reaction is. It was just something that Warren had passed on to me, and I thought might be something that we should talk about. Because I'd hate to, a year or two from now, and the town's getting blitzed by, hawkers and peddlers, and people go, I wish these folks would leave me alone. And, that we hadn't done anything about it or hadn't discussed it, then I think we would have been a little remiss. But
And probably the bigger issue is that we probably have a lot of peddlers in town that aren't following, that aren't even coming in for a
That's
permit.
True, true.
So,
So it might be a bigger problem than we even know. How would we know? what
Well,
the
and,
problem is?
you know, that's another part of the process, is in the process, you can try and help educate people, say, look, if somebody comes to you to sell you something, ask them for their peddler's license from the town. And if they don't have one, then you ought to chase them off your property.
Antoinette, does the county's veteran permit that they give for people, does that supersede the town's peddler's permit? Because doesn't Putnam County have a veteran's card that would allow a properly qualified veteran to have an ice cream truck or a hot dog cart anywhere in the county? Doesn't
I don't
it?
know if it does or not. We do our own. We have
Okay.
them fingerprinted. The picture should be on the permit, and they should be displaying that
Okay. And they're good for how, for a year?
a year.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, well, that's something we'll bring back up in the near future. I'm going to defer my executive session personnel to the end of the meeting. Kevin, you're ready?
All right, first item on my agenda is we received a recommendation from the town assessor to settle a tax certiorari proceeding. There are two actions pending in Putnam County Supreme Court from 2013 and 2014 for involving 4 properties. The assessors made a recommendation after negotiation with the applicant to resolve the case through a settlement. So based on that recommendation, I'd make a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the settlement of the tax certiorari proceeding in the matter of Windward Holding Corp. Versus the town of Patterson et al. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Next item on my agenda is 2 requests from Putnam Lake Park District. For those who don't know, there was some fencing that was damaged in the Lake District as a result of an automobile accident. There are some emergency repairs that needed to be performed. Estimates have been obtained to repair and replace several posts and fencing at that location. I believe we're probably going to get this money back at some point. It's going to be covered by insurance at some point, so it's a temporary expenditure. Hopefully the money will come back in from the insurance company for the vehicle that struck it. So I'll make a motion to approve the authorization of repairs for the fences for a sum not to exceed $4,050. So moved.
Second, and discussion. It says here, emergency fence and wall repair. I mean, does that mean it's going to get done like tomorrow?
It's going to get done as soon as possible. Basically, when I went out there and looked at what had happened, I have a concern because there's a stone wall, a huge drop off, and now what's happened is the fence has been pushed over and there's a space about 14, 18 inches that somebody could potentially fall through. It's not, I mean, it's just a, 3-foot drop or so. It's not, like 20 feet to the ground. But the other added injury potential is now you've got that ragged end of the cyclone fence sticking out, where if somebody actually fell in there, they get shredded on the way down. So my opinion is after looking at it, I think this thing's got to get fixed as soon as possible.
Okay.
So,
And it's funds that should come back from the vehicle that was at fault should reimburse us for
Yeah.
those expenditures.
Yeah, my only question was, we're not doing a 3 bids and that type of thing. So,
no.
but if it's an emergency, let's get it done and do it right away.
my opinion, it should be fixed ASAP.
Good enough for me?
Next request is a request from the Putnam Lake Park District to purchase and install 17 no parking signs. The cost to be manufactured by Putnam County Sign Shop at a cost not to exceed $408. The installation is going to be performed by the Patterson Highway Department. So between the two, the total sum expended will be $1,537.01. So I make a motion to approve the request to purchase and install the no parking signs as per the request dated September 4th, 2014. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Did you want to make a motion on that 4,000?
I thought we did.
Well,
Actually, we didn't vote.
we treat it as
didn't vote.
emergency repair, but Trish was asking for us to sort of formally, because I've already authorized to go forward with the repair.
Yeah, we said discussion, so we didn't vote, did we?
No.
I don't
All right.
believe it.
All right, so can we go back to vote?
Yeah, sure.
I think there was
All
a
right.
motion, we just didn't vote. Right.
All right, so
Well, those motion was made, you seconded for point of discussion.
Discussion.
Yeah.
I second it.
Yeah,
Right,
but we
okay.
never get to the vote part.
I guess-
We need to vote.
So all in favor?
Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Sorry.
Keeping us on our toes?
Just,
Now we approved
just didn't
$8,000.
want to have an issue when the minutes came out and go, oh, they never voted on it.
Why is this on my agenda again?
Good catch.
Next item on my agenda are budget transfers. I have a nominal transfer of $250 between park payroll and swim lessons payroll for $250. Motion between various recreation programs at the rec center for $1,017. And budget transfer request 30 is a nominal transfer between liability and MTA taxes. So make a motion to approve budget transfer request 28, 29, and 30 as submitted. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
Next item on my agenda is conference request. I have one conference request to attend the National Assessors meeting from October 5th or October 8th. So I'd make a motion to approve that request for training as submitted. So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
All
Can I
in-
ask a question?
Sure.
Before, just a quick question, the amount of the, and forgive me, I'm new to understanding the way that Chris's salary is figured, but is there any sharing of the amount of the conference with, or any way to ask for additional funds for future from hauling? Or is that just figured out as part of his?
It's
Our
figured out, but
cost.
I'm sure Bruce has a very similar question, but,
Well, I'll leave it with you because that was my question.
okay, well, Chris is technically our employee, and it's our responsibility, well, it's his responsibility to make sure that he maintains all his certifications, et cetera, so.
It's required. It's a
there's-
required training.
Well, there's a, you know, there's a couple of parts to the conversation, and I've got mixed emotions on it both ways, that a building inspector, assessor, certain types of people are required to keep certain credentials.
Sure.
Whether or not, there's a debate, and I'm not sure which way I always come down on this, is it their responsibility or is it our responsibility to see that they keep their credentials? And I, at some point, that might be a conversation for a different night, but, as far as polling goes, I don't believe that it's built into what we have requested. Is the request entirely, a good compensation package for the town? It probably could be better, but it does save us money, and it helps us with, when the controller comes down and goes, what are you guys doing for shared services? Say, well, we're sharing an assessor.
Sean, I think that if I remember right, the current agreement, which goes through next December 2015, that Patterson pays for these type of things. I think the agreement calls for Paulie to share in the salary and some benefits and so forth, but that we would pay for this miscellaneous type
Sure.
Well,
expenses.
Yeah, technically he is our employee and we're just sort of renting him out. But go ahead, Bruce.
Yeah, I truthfully have no problem with that. My only concern is that appears to be an annual conference, so it's something he's going to every year. But if next month he comes to you and he says, there is this new conference on XYZ, well, I would hope at least at that point in time you'd say, you're a 60% employee here, we'll pay 60% of it, go to your other employer and get the other 40% if it's something new. And I'd like to know, well, I'll discuss it on Monday, but I want you to think about it. I believe the agreement that you have over the next 2 years is that his compensation can't go up by more than 2%, okay? And you've just announced that you're giving all the employees a 3%. I think...
We're only giving him 3% on the money we pay him.
Okay, fine, thank you.
And is this a budget? Does he have this in his budget?
Yes.
Every year?
And that's kind of the limiting factor. He puts in, as all other departments put in for training, and at that point, they can only spend but so much money as per their training line. So,
Mike, going back to what you said about the fundamental difference in whether or not a training is required for your job, I would say that if it's something that the town is asking him to take on and it's training required to do that task, then we should absolutely pay for that. If it's a training that is required for the very necessity of, it'd be no different than a lawyer being hired. You'd say, well, we don't pay to go get your law degree, but
Or for continuing education.
or for continuing education necessarily. So I think it's a discussion that has to continue.
It's a debate that, you know, I've had with myself for a while. Is it reasonable to say, okay, the taxpayers is part of, say, Chris's job as assessor, he has to have minimum requirements. As part of, if you want to work for Russ, you have to have a CDL.
Right.
You know, I don't know anybody that we've necessarily paid for to get their CDL or sent to train. They may have trained a few guys over the years, but the director of codes is 24 hours of in-service training. We pay for that. We pay for their memberships to NISBOC. We pay, you know, I just, you know, at some point you wonder what's, you know, if it's a requirement that you have these credentials for your job, is it really our responsibility to pay for them? If you want to have a professional membership to an organization, in legal law review, we're not going to pay for that. If you're going to have, so if you want to be a member of the Planning Federation or Planners Conference or something, yeah, is it, you know, something? Yes, it's in the town's benefit because it helps educate them. We pay for the Association of Towns magazine because it's very informative. I get, the town pays for my GFOA, which Government Finance Officers Association. So you know, I get a lot of information from that. Would I continue to get that magazine if I had to pay for it? I don't know, it's a couple $100 a year. So it's a debate. I just.
Well, the answer isn't going to be the same in every case. It needs to be something that's looked at in maybe in each case.
Well, I think for this particular request, I think it's
Yeah.
Well, it's past practice, so,
I think
and it's in the
debate
budget,
for
so
future,
I'm not sure that this is, you know, one to really get off on it.
I have no trouble paying for people's, whether it's continuing education or learning as it relates to the job. You know, I think that's, the town can spend that, you get a better employee.
All right, well, motion's been made for a conference request, and I believe it's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Last item on my agenda, we received a request from our town planner recommending release of a performance bond. I believe Peckham Industries had performed some blacktop work and had filed a performance bond for the site restoration. That work now has been completed, and there's a motion, in form of resolution actually, to release the balance of the performance bond. So I would make a motion to approve the release of the performance bond for the RCA asphalt performance bond. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good.
That is all. Thank you.
Peter?
All right, first item on my agenda is a sanitation request from Frank Farrell. He's requesting that we appoint 2 more temporary employees, part-time employees to put on their call-out list. And I checked with Sue, and they've already been checked out, so they'll be ready to go. And that'd be Chris Tompkins and Edward Matrex. Matrejex. That's a tough name.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
The second item on my agenda is a memo from the New York Department of Public Service about the New York State Lifeline discounted telephone service. It says, I'm writing to ask your help in raising awareness of the Lifeline discount telephone service program and encouraging eligible consumers to enroll. Lifeline discount telephone service is a program designed to make basic telephone service more affordable for income-eligible consumers. Consumers qualify for Lifeline by participating in one of a number of federal assistance programs or having income at or below 135% of the federal poverty guidelines. Last year, the Federal Communications Commission updated its rules governing program eligibility and non-duplication of support to improve programs' efficiency and ensure those that need support can receive it. September 8th through the 14th, 2014, has been designated, I guess it's already started, has been designated as National Lifeline Awareness Week. The New York State Department of Public Service is joining other state agencies, local human resource organizations, and local telephone companies to promote Lifeline Awareness Week and focus attention on this important program. We ask you to join us in raising awareness of this important program by posting a link on your organization's website. Have we done that? Which we have done. We can provide posters to assist you, etc. So if you need more information on this, you can go to our website. Do we have anything in the lobby? The rec center? Okay.
This website.
And there's a website too. You can go directly to www.askpsc.com. The next item on my agenda is the Putnam Lake residents, a complaint from a Putnam Lake resident about bamboo. Okay, this resident, living at 5 Lacona Drive in Patterson, is complaining about their neighbor planted invasive bamboo, and I is that?
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay. I've discussed this with Rich Williams. I guess we have several areas around the town that has some bamboo, and I talked to Rich about. I guess there's two different types of bamboo, and Rich explained it greatly to me today. But would you mind just talking a little bit more, since you did a lot of research on this, and also what other towns are doing?
Sure, not at all. There's basically two types of bamboo. The first type is very invasive. It spreads by runners. It's very aggressive. It can send the runners out anywhere from 10 to 16 feet. It'll get under blacktop. It'll get under decks. It'll get under, go through concrete. It's very difficult to contain. There's a couple of different ways that are recommended to contain it, though opinions vary on the effectiveness. One way all ways to contain it require some sort of trench to be dug to a depth of 30 feet. And then it goes down.
3 feet.
Yes, I'm sorry, 3 feet, 30 inches, sorry. And then opinions vary about whether you should use some sort of geotextile, or the most aggressive way was, one individual said nothing he found worked except for metal barriers, actually burying metal into the ground to that depth. The second type of bamboo is clumping bamboo. It is much less invasive. You still can't plant it really close to certain areas such as driveways, sidewalks, because it will lift the sidewalks or driveways, but it is much less of a concern. There are two types now that I believe this year DEC has listed as invasive species, and people are prohibited from owning, planting. If it's already established, of course, it doesn't qualify, but from owning or selling or planting new species, and that's yellow bamboo and golden bamboo. I listed them in the memo. Yeah. I guess this is a growing problem, especially in the more highly developed areas such as Long Island, Lower Westchester. A number of different towns have laws now on their books. Everybody has basically the same law. We're all thieves at some point, where we steal each other's code, like Mike has done with North Salem. And Mamaroneck, I believe, is the latest municipality down in Westchester that is looking at, or actually has adopted, a law. I've given you their draft law, or a draft of their law, for you to consider if it's appropriate for something in the town of Patterson. I've also mentioned it to Russ. I don't know if he has any areas of concern alongside the roads.
We have that one spot on 22.
Route 22, old Route 22 and 164?
Yeah.
Yeah, the bamboo gets pretty high there and then falls over on the road. And there's a spot there, and then it's on the other end of that road as well. Yeah.
I have a question for Don. Don, did you get a copy of Rich's email that showed the Mamaroneck, I think it was the Village of Mamaroneck's law code? All right.
I have a copy of it.
Okay. I think if you take a look at that, probably you could change Mamaroneck to Patterson, and it, you know, kind of flows and covers. And I think that, if I remember right in reading it, that the law also says that people who previously had bamboo on their property now need to abide by this new law,
Correct, they need to control it.
right? So I think, now there's a law that we should move on.
Yeah.
Because
Question, though.
there's this, Miss Agnew?
Yeah.
Is that you?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I think that, you know, that would help her. And you pointed out other locations in the town, and we can move on that to help people. So, yeah, I'd like to see us
If you
move.
want, I can work with Don, we can have it in local law format, probably for the next town board meeting.
I have a question, though. First, you're saying that the DEC already says that this is an invasive species. Does this DEC regulate that someone can't plant this, or are we being redundant?
We are not being redundant. They have listed as 2 varieties of running bamboo as being an invasive species. There are 60, 70 different species of running bamboo.
If I
So,
remember right, this law, like out of the Mamaroneck,
Excuse me.
puts a stop to all of them. You know, they don't say, well, plant A or B or whatever. And, you know, I sympathize with you, and I think
Yeah.
that,
Well, I've been trying to kill it off for years.
Rich, would you?
Would you mind just,
Oh, excuse me.
We'll just, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I've been trying to kill off the bamboo for years.
Excuse me,
I've
could we
been.
just have your name for the record, please?
Oh, yes, my name is Marion Agnew. I live at 5 Lacona Drive in Putnam Lake.
Thank you.
And I've been trying to kill off the bamboo for years. This William Geese was given a root by a neighbor, and he planted it right in our corner. He has, I think, 3 lots, and I have 3 lots. And the neighbor up above us, Mr. Powers, also, I think he has 4 lots. And what has happened is this bamboo has grown up our banks and is quite extensive into Mr. Powers' yard at this point, and heading towards Marion Drive and other neighbors' yards. It is just incredible. I've been dragging it down to a place where I was given permission to dump, and I drag it down in my car because, as far as trying to get rid of the stuff, it's almost impossible. We don't want to dump it down at the lake. We can't burn it. And the town has no policy as far as collecting this stuff. And thank God I have a saw that I can chop it up small enough. But, I'm getting tired of trying to take care of 3 people's property. And also Mr. Geese's property now, I noticed, that is growing down behind my fence and down towards on the other side of my property where my well is. And that is a big concern to me. And nobody seems to want to do anything. The neighbors are just uncooperative.
Have you, Rich, in your research, have you found any type of herbicide or anything that is even remotely effective on this stuff?
they,
Oh,
yeah, they listed a couple of different varieties of herbicides that you could use, but you had to, once you cut the stalks, you had to treat the remaining stalk fairly rapidly with the herbicide. Bamboo tends to seal it off so it doesn't become effective, but it only kills the root system for a short distance. The remaining runners will continue to sprout out new shoots up through the soil. So, This is something very similar. Pat Ploger just pointed out Japanese knotweed or canebrake, also called false bamboo, that I've got on my property. I've been fighting for ages now. And same thing, very aggressive. You know, I've tried many herbicides on that as well as Phragmites. Nothing really works. So the only thing surefire removal method that anybody had listed was excavation of all the soil for a depth of 30 inches.
It's insane. Mrs. sounds like kudzu or something out of Jumanji. I mean, it's frightening.
Rich, are there other invasives other than the one you just mentioned that we may want to take a look at while crafting?
I should
a law
probably
like
just
this?
ban all running bamboo.
No, I mean other than bamboo.
Or
I mean
invasive
other
species.
invasive species of plants.
I would go cautiously on that. We certainly can craft a law that we can add things in later on easily enough, but, you know, the DEC has a very extensive process, and they work with sister agencies before they ever make a determination that a plant is an invasive plant. It really has to be aggressive. And most of the plants, and that reminds me, Ross, we've got a problem over on Old 22 I need to talk to you about, but
I don't know if we're picking this all up or
Rich,
not.
get
Mike.
You okay with it?
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, I'd move cautiously as far as looking at other types of plants. There's really an extensive evaluation process that should be done before anybody declares something invasive. In this case, having done the research on the bamboo, which I'm by no means an expert on, it was alarming to see. And then, you know, driving around town once, and I got to say, there was a Mrs. Dorothy Brennan over in Putnam Lake who initially pointed out the problem to me. She's about 8-9 months ago. And you drive around town and you see the spots, and then over time you see how they increase. The one that surprised me the most is on the intersection of Fair Street and Terry Hill Road. You know, that's tripled in size, and it's right next to a nice egg power station. And very shortly it's going to be in the substation over there. And I don't know what, how that's going to affect that substation, you know, throwing power out. And I don't know how nice it's going to try to control it. So.
Big D has something for us?
I just think it's going to be an interesting law to review, because I have a lot of questions about it. I take some faith in the fact that Mamaroneck has adopted it, so there must have been a pretty thorough review by the people down there. Yeah, I guess a few reactions. I kind of echo the thought that if the DEC, I'm not familiar with the DEC's list of invasive species, but if there are species that are so designated, it might be worthwhile to see if we should include it. Putnam Lake jumps to mind. If you you take a boat to Lake George, you're supposed to take precautions. I think Asian milfoil was there, and so maybe it's appropriate to say that those type of plants that could cause a problem to the lake should also be considered for this type of legislation.
We actually have that in Chapter 116.
Yeah,
where
that's it.
They have to treat the boat before.
Got it. Okay,
before
so
they put it in the lake.
so I certainly recognize the severity of the problem and the potential problem that could occur. The town board makes a determination that it is a sufficient problem to warrant stepping in to regulate and not leave it to private landowners to try to police, because it certainly is something that would be considered a nuisance that would be actionable in this latest case. I mean, there's certainly something that appears to be in the category of nuisance, but if it's severe enough of a problem and the board recognizes it as that, then it's certainly something that's appropriate for regulation. The retroactivity and how someone can be, someone who, in this case, it appears that there was a purposeful planting. If there are other people who now have had runners enter onto their property and they had nothing to do with it, now they have to go to potentially significant expense to block it. And how appropriate is that to visit on a landowner? And all of these things are grounded in constitutional bases also that we'll look into. it will be an interesting exercise to do. So
One of the problems too is Mr. Geese's property in the back. The runners that are going down the back of his property right now will eventually, and I've told him this many times, will interfere with his dry well back there. Now, being that we only have 3 lots apiece, doesn't give us a whole lot of land to have to deal with running water or a broken septic or a dry well at that point. And I had suggested maybe bringing in a backhoe into my yard and maybe digging up some of his stuff as I come in. But as I see the growth, it's just gotten beyond, if I do my yard and maybe part of his, and he doesn't put, from what I've seen on the internet and read, that you really need either metal or they have these plastic barriers that they use out in San Diego, that they can go either 3 or 6 foot into the ground itself to prevent the spread of anything. And right now, I just bought some black plastic myself. I'm going to have to cover my back deck because the runners are coming up through my back deck. I've tried salt that you put in your water softener. I've seen that on the internet. I've tried Round Out and every other blasted thing that I could find to try to control this, and nothing has worked.
Well, we will certainly be more than happy to look into this. I'm not sure that there's much we can do to help solve your problem, but maybe we can prevent other people from having it. If we come across anything, or Richie comes across anything in his research that we find that might be useful or helpful, we'll certainly pass it along.
Well, would it be feasible for the homeowners to maybe cover part of the expense or whatever? I mean, it can't keep growing. Something has to be done about it.
Well, I think when Don looks at the law, maybe we can answer some of those questions.
Okay.
I think that's the first step we have to do.
Okay.
I mean, we have a law that they use down the village of Amerenik in Westchester County as a basis, and Don's firm can go into their computer and look at other communities that have such a law, and maybe we can come up with something that will help.
Okay, because along with my complaint, I did send in pictures too.
Yes, we have.
So, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
All right, next item on my agenda is the Patterson Emergency Management Committee. So this all started, the Patterson Library hosted an emergency management planning meeting last week. I attended, Rich Williams, Mike Griffin, and Charlie Cook. We all attended this meeting. And pretty much it started out, the library, they just got a new generator, and I guess the last couple of storms, they identified that they were really busy during the storms, and they helped a lot of residents out. So they actually went out on their own and formed this emergency management plan, which was really good and very inclusive. And at the meeting, we also had representatives from the Patterson Fire Department and Matt Chaparro from the Rec Center. And not only did we hear what the library was doing, we also identified, which we've been kind of discussing offline for a while anyway, that there were some things that the library was doing that the Rec Center was already doing, and we found that one of the biggest problems was that we didn't have any communication, or the communication wasn't good enough between agencies, between departments, and I think we need to we found out we needed to enhance our current emergency management plan. So out of this meeting, we kind of decided that maybe we should form a committee, an emergency management committee, where we can meet with members of the town, different agencies, the library, the rec center, both fire departments. I think we need to include the Putnam Lake as well as Patterson, NICEAG, get them involved too, and the Putnam County Bureau of Emergency Services. So if we can get all these groups together, we decided we're going to meet in October just to get things going a little bit. Talk about, I think one of the biggest problems is communication to the residents during a storm, how we can improve on that to the public, and also communication between agencies, like I said, to make sure we're all on the same page, we're not duplicating services. And also, you know, if people some people go to the library, some people go to the rec center, some people will come to the town for answers. At least everyone would know what everybody else is doing and be able to send people to the appropriate places. You know, some people like going to the library. You know, if I had my 2 kids running around, I'd probably want to go to the rec center. So at least I would know what resources there are there. Also, education, educating the residents. And the library already took a step, and I might as well make this announcement too. They are doing an emergency preparedness workshop on Saturday, September 27th at 1 p.m. at the library. And they're going to include family emergency planning, disaster kit building, sheltering and evacuation essentials, senior considerations, and pet concerns. And they have Jeffrey Grossman from the History Channel, an expert, who's going to talk about emergency preparedness. I also presented a program that I do down in Westchester. I'm the coordinator for the Westchester Citizen Corps Coalition, which I go to different agencies and different communities and help start community emergency response teams. And I'm also the coordinator of the Greenberg Police Emergency Response Team. And this is where we train citizens how to prepare for emergencies, how to help themselves, help their families in emergencies, and then how to help the emergency services in emergencies. And what we really found that they're actually helpful in a lot of different things. The emergency services, the fire department, the police department during an emergency will be involved in, saving lives and doing, stuff they're trained in. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be done, and we can't, it wouldn't be good to pull a police officer or firefighter off a scene to direct traffic or close off a road or watch a wire or open an emergency shelter. And that's what we train our CERT team in doing. They actually open an emergency shelter and manage the shelter. They direct traffic for us. They'll sit on a wire. They'll close a road. Just if we want to block a road off, we'll put them on there. So this is another program we're looking into. But right now we're starting this emergency management committee, and we're going to discuss all the things, what direction we're going to go to, identify what our problems are in the town, what we need to do, and who we need to work with. I'll be giving reports on our progress as we go along.
Great.
Other business.
I'm sorry, I also have another announcement.
Sure, go right ahead.
I received at work, as you know, I'm a police officer in the town of Greenberg. I was going through our intel bulletins. I get intel bulletins from Dutchess, Westchester, Putnam County, and then whenever I see anything for Putnam County, specifically Patterson, it kind of catches my eye. So I got this intel flyer from the State Police Brewster, and I'll read it to you. On September 4th, 2014, at approximately 6 p.m., common household items were discovered on the Michael Sciola Trail System in Patterson, New York, approximately 1/4 mile east of Stagecoach Road. These items were used to make a device that could have caused a dangerous chemical reaction. These materials either failed to react or may have been purposely left for a passerby to pick up and agitate. Additional items were also located adjacent to the device. These devices commonly consist of toilet cleaner and aluminum foil mixed inside a bottle. When agitated, a chemical reaction makes a volatile expansion of gases and subsequently explodes at a great amount of force. The reaction could be severe enough to cause second or third degree burns or blindness. The device and materials located at the scene were all purchased at a Dollar Tree discount store, as the products located are proprietary to the store chain. So what they found was toilet cleaner, aluminum foil, and usually a soda bottle. This is actually what I teach when I do terrorism classes. It's a homemade bomb you can make. Put some toilet paper. I don't want to tell everyone how to make a bomb, but it's a simple thing. But when agitated, the chemical reaction.
I just want to interrupt 1 second. Paul, what's your son's name?
Ryan.
Ryan.
Ryan, come back here.
I just want to thank you, Ryan, for doing a great job. We have a new videographer tonight, and this had to be painfully boring for you. And we do appreciate the fact that you did stay focused the whole entire time, and I'm sure we're going to have a great meeting on videotape. So thank you, Ryan. I appreciate it.
Now you really embarrassed him.
You,
good
his
man.
father.
I could only imagine if at his age, if somebody said, "Look, you're going to sit down and you're going to watch a bunch of old guys, and you're going to videotape a meeting where they're talking about stuff that you couldn't care less about, but you have to stay focused because you have to move the camera from here to there and focus on who's speaking, and everything else." And he did a fantastic job.
He did a good job.
I have to say, he stayed focused. You know, it had to be painful for him to sit through this, but
Increase his allowance.
he did a great job.
He gets double time
You've
for
done
that.
a good job with your son. So I'm sorry, Peter, I
That's
didn't mean to
good.
interrupt, but I just wanted to let him know before he left.
So I just think this is important to pass along to the public. You know, these chemicals, when they're mixed together into a bottle, when they're agitated, it can cause an explosion. You know, it's an expansion of gases. But what can happen too is if you could just, you could tape something to it, some nails or tacks or glass, and it makes it even worse. So it's just kind of scary that they found these on a trail in the woods, and that they were proprietary to Dollar Tree. So I guess the toilet cleaner was a discount toilet cleaner that's only sold Dollar Tree. So my point is I just want to emphasize that, you know, this kind of goes hand in hand with our emergency management committee. We just need to, be more careful, to be more observant. And if you see something like this, it just looks like, some cleaner and some tinfoil or whatever in a soda bottle, but it could be very dangerous. I could just imagine one of my little kids picking this up and seeing what it is and blowing up in their face and blinding them.
Well, I mean,
You know?
every time I get ready to mow my lawn, I have to police up the front of my yard because somebody drove by and threw something out. Now, if you hadn't brought this up, so there's a soda bottle there, I pick it up, go to throw it. Now I'm going to be a lot more aware when I'm out cleaning up my yard before I mow, because now I may send the wife out. I don't know, but.
So if you do see this, stay away from it, get far away from it, call 911. Hey, if it's just a soda bottle, no harm done. But if it is a device, at least we prevented
Yeah,
something.
you certainly wouldn't want to see anybody, especially kids, get hurt. Because somebody thinks this is funny, or they saw it on the internet and it looked like it might be entertaining. It's.
What even disturbs me just as much is that I had to find this out from at work, thumbing through Intel bulletins, when I don't even think the sheriff's department knew about this, because I was working with some deputies the other day and they didn't even mention this. And I think that's part of the emergency management committee too, is to get better communications, not only with the sheriff's department but also with the state police, and get everyone on board and get information out to the public for stuff like this.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other business?
I have two things.
Well, I'm not to you yet.
Pardon me?
Hold on.
Oh, excuse me.
I'm working from left to right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, but I'll defer to someone who has a lot to say.
All right. Well,
I have nothing about this.
I have a couple of three things, so if you want to do yours, and then we'll come back
Just
to
have
mine.
two quick things. It's sort of a segue from Peter over there, that just a reminder to people, New York Alert is still available. There's flyers like this down at the lobby, town hall. Get them, read them. It's an emergency notification list. You pick the method, you pick the time, you pick everything, and it's just a way of staying on top of things. Road closures,
Missing adults.
missing persons, etc. I mean, it's a good vehicle. Second, I would like to, on behalf of the town board, recognize that the Putnam Lake Fire Department has accepted a member into the Putnam Lake Fire Department. His name is Thomas Consalto at 233 Haviland Drive in Patterson. That's it.
Okay, Kevin?
Nothing.
Okay, a couple of quick things. I know nobody wants to really think about this yet, but I would ask that we like to make a motion that we authorize the town clerk to advertise for winter sidewalk maintenance bids. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the other thing is I mentioned tonight, and I'm going to ask Russ to come up and just give the board a brief overview of what salt shed that he's planning
Mike?
on building.
Sorry to interrupt, the sound went out for some reason.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it came on.
Oh, okay.
Back on.
Maybe it's your ears. Anyhow, in the budget message tonight, I talked about salt shed, and for several years, probably 10 now, the DEP has wanted, and I guess the DEC as well, has wanted all salt materials handled and loaded inside of sheds and unloaded and kept in storage. So, in the interest of complying with the environmental concerns of excess salt, which we're all starting to see more and more problems with. But Russ, would you like to give the board an overview of what it is you're building out there, or you want to build out there?
Yeah, I think you've done it pretty good, Mike. I applied for a grant 2 years ago. It finally came to fruition. And so we're looking to put up a salt shed so all our operations are inside. So you discussed the money before. You were right on with that. And that's about it. So now I have to start putting all these people together to get this project started in April, I hope.
Okay.
It's about a 5-week project.
All right. Now, Rich, I know you've been involved with DASNY grants before. The SECRA involved, as well as authorization for application. What all steps in the process? Because first of all, Russ, thank you very much for chasing and getting the grant. That's a big deal. $150,000 is a huge savings for the taxpayers. So thank you.
Yeah, Highway's getting ready to submit the application back, the preliminary application back to DASNY, but the town board needs to take a couple of steps. One is to complete seeker, an environmental review of what the proposed action is going to be. And the other one is to do a resolution committing the town to their portion of the funding, because the grant doesn't cover the whole project.
Okay.
So if you're comfortable, we can have that for you next meeting. Get the
Yeah,
ball
absolutely.
rolling.
I mean, I think it's a great idea, having the salt so it's loaded inside, stored inside. I mean, we have a well contamination problem here with sodium. We're starting to find them in many, many other places in town. I'm sure they're finding them in other towns as well. Russ, do you need to use a town engineer for site plan and
Yep.
all that? So,
Yes.
okay, well, at this point, I just like to authorize the highway department and town planner to use whatever resources, town engineer, et cetera, to get preliminary
sound went out
plan
again.
established. What? Not my fault.
Something we gotta check out. It's only yours now. Here you go.
Not my fault. I talk too much anyway. That's it. That's all I got. We did the Willis, the sidewalk. We did the highway garage, salt shed. Got a couple of things for executive session. You covered the fire department. I think we're good. Let's move on to our favorite portion of the evening, and that's public recognition. Is there any member of the public that would like to be recognized at this time?
Pat Ploger. Just yesterday, the Putnam Lake Park District received the equivalent of an attaboy from none other than the New York State DEC. The reason being is that we completed a successful swim season on Monday. Having tested, we're part of the Citizens Lakewide Assessment Program, and we tested the water and the algae on Sunday, shipped it off to Syracuse, and they examined it right away. And while we had little spotty occasions around the lake of blue-green algae, there was no need to shut down the beaches as we had last year. And the reason that we're all pretty sure the reason that this happened is because you backed us on our request for a algicide treatment back in the middle of July, and it worked. We have had anecdotal reports from fishermen and bathers and so forth, lifeguards who have said, we've worked for 8 years and have never seen the lake so clear, and fishermen who said, I can actually see the fish or the oars when I put them in the water. So we're very grateful, and as Rich said when I told him this earlier, this is just a Band-Aid to these treatments. What we have to do going forward is to make sure that we reduce whatever is coming into the lake, and that means through our many inflows, our streams, and our drains, street drains, and so forth. Septic system enforcement, I guess we're coming up on the end of period where everybody has to have had their septic.
May is 4 years.
It'll be 4, so we have 1 more year to go. So we're going to try and spread the word in Putnam Lake, and we hope we have your backing. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Bruce Major, 166 Somerset. It's been 3 months since we heard anything about the master plan, and so I just had a couple of questions. Have we ever received a response from the, Pace Land Use Center? A letter was sent. I got confirmation in July that a letter was sent by the town. I was just wondering if you ever heard from them?
I sent an email to John Nolan. I didn't get a response.
Okay. Are we going to try again, or are we just...
We actually, well, we had some discussions before this meeting with potentially putting together a committee having to do it, but we really haven't. I think we're probably going to talk during the budget meeting about that.
Okay. And has anybody had a chance to speak to Peter Hansen? Because as of 3 months ago, we hadn't, who is with the village of...
I have spoken with him, but my next step was to meet with him, and I have not done that.
Okay. And the LEADS program, where are you with that?
The LEADS program.
That's what was mentioned at the June 11th meeting, and a grant under the Clean Green Committee Phase 2. A $65,000 grant, has that been put in?
We haven't heard anything, but I do want to say that the county has applied for funding to bring John Nolan in for all the communities. So the county's working on the same parallel track.
Fine, thank you. So maybe we'll be hearing something in reference to our master plan, seeing that we're...
Countywide?
I guess it's 3.5, 4 years ago when we spent town money to do a survey, so one would hope that... I know you weren't interested in it, Mike, but one would hope that now that we have some new committee people, that maybe we'll be able to get something going. The next thing is I'd like to talk about the fire department. Could someone explain to me what reports they're supposed to submit to you, and what is the frequency of those reports?
It's monthly, and supposed to respond, how many responses, how many calls, right?
Yeah, I could go over that. I could get the contract and go over that with you, Bruce. There are actually, some are quarterly reports, and some are annual reports. As a, for instance, an audit of their books is an annual report.
Okay. The reason why I have some concerns is I believe on June 11th you signed a contract with Putnam Lake. You had already signed one with the town of Patterson Fire Department. And for this entire year, we've only seen one report listed. Once again this month we see no reports. So is there anybody on the town board responsible to contact the fire department and say, excuse me, but where are the reports that you said you were going to give us, because we signed a contract that said we're going to give you money and you're going to give us reports. So I'd like to know who's responsible for the accountability to see that that's done. I mean, you're talking to the fire department, we're going to do these committees, emergency management. It gives me concern when we're not getting the reports. And I know they're doing a fine job. They responded to my house right before I went on vacation during a thunderstorm. Fast response, they were very thorough, they were very good. I was very appreciative, but you know, you have a contract with them and you should know what they're doing. You know, the only thing I hear now is you say, well, we hired Billy now as a new fireman. That's great. I'm glad to see we're getting more firemen. But shouldn't somebody be responsible to make sure? You know, well, they don't send it, well, we don't care. You know, what are you going to do next budget time? And you have a new contract. You're going to say, well, why don't you just sign a contract and say, don't bother giving us reports. If you're not going to insist that they give you the reports, then take it out of the contract and just say, do whatever the hell you want to do. So is anybody responsible for it? That's my question, to see that we get the reports.
I'll tell you if you want. I mean, I'll give them a call.
Okay, great, thank you.
I don't know if I can or not. I think I talked my microphone to death.
Okay, and they may not invite you for chicken dinners in January, but actually, if you're smart, you pay them in 4 installments instead of 2, and then you get 4 dinners off of them. I'm sorry. Where are we with the Clove Lake tax registry? I was just curious as to.
We're still waiting for the judge's ruling. We have filed for dismissal because they have continued to refuse to provide us with information. We requested their appraisal, they refused. We requested their financials, they refused. So we have had filed a motion for dismissal, and we're still waiting to hear the judge's ruling on that.
Okay, fine, thank you. Mike, you're the chairman of the East of Hudson Corporation now?
President, chairman.
President, chairman, okay. I understand an individual had to be replaced over there because of performance. I'd like to know, has there been an examination of the records to make sure that the things that were supposed to have been done are actually been done? I know there were some concerns with change orders and things like that and expenditures. Has anybody taken a look at that to see if there was any misappropriation of funds or monies that were given to contractors that shouldn't have been given to contractors?
There has been, right now, we have completed the audit for 2012. We are finishing the audit for 2013. And we have identified all of the change orders. There was in total, I think, about $1.5 million, $1.6 million. We are in the process of going through them one by one, and there will be an accounting as to whether or not we're going to be able to get anybody from. The majority of them were to other engineers. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure anybody's ever going to say, well, yeah, we did something, but we are reviewing all the change orders, all the backup documentation that's involved right now. It's a rather long and protracted process. We're also in the process of trying to get in full compliance with the IRS, with New York State and everybody else that's we have commitments to, because we're considered a charitable organization by the state. So we have reporting requirements to them. We have reporting requirements to the DEP, reporting requirements to the DEC. So we are in the process now. This is my first year as president. So we started in January with the staff review, at which point I realized that the current director at the time was approving change orders in excess of $5,000 without bringing them to the board's attention. So I brought that to the board's attention, and at the August meeting, the full board of all the 19 towns voted to request his resignation. So we've been sorting through everything since the beginning of August, and I hope by the end of this year we'll have a full accounting of who did what, when, where, and how.
Now, do you have better candidates to replace him, I hope?
We haven't even started looking yet, because right now we have, we hired a lady to take over as controller. We have an in-house attorney now that is reviewing all the contracts and all the change orders, and also filling out like the IRS, the 990, the 1023s, all the other forms that we are required to have to establish ourselves as a not-for-profit, or non-profit, or whatever it is, not-for-profit. We have compliance with the state, so we're working on all of those issues. A lot of those things we were told were being done weren't getting done, so we're still in the process of the heavy lift, but we will have probably filed everything with the DEP. We are responsible. We have to have our budget in by the end of next month, and some other things have to be completed by that point, and we're hoping to have 2013 audit done as well. So.
And then my last question relative to that, will we ever be compensated for Mr. Williams' hours? Because I don't want to go back to the minutes where you said, now that I am the chairman, I can assure you that we will get compensated.
I will be more than happy to pursue it as soon as I have the information required.
Okay, good. And then I just have one last thing. Back on July 25th, Council had provided a memo to you folks in reference to responsibility for expenditures for the dam. As of today, I haven't gotten, and the last comment I got was the attorney needed to clean it up, whatever that means. So I was just curious, will I ever see that report?
I have an update for you, and I'm going to defer to counsel, but the message I got was, his counsel has determined that this would fall under attorney-client privilege, and I don't know that he's suggesting that we turn it over to you. I personally don't see a problem, but
Well, I also have a comment that, what was the date of the meeting?
The 25th of July.
We discussed it. We discussed it in open meeting, so there's no reason.
And not only that, but you said you would turn it over.
Well, Bruce, what might have been said by the board at that time about turning it over is something that's subject to our opinion, and we don't provide attorney work product and confidential communications with the board to persons making FOIL requests. It's exempt. We did discuss what the results of our research were, and I don't have any problem saying it again if it's the board's pleasure. We made a determination that maintenance of the lake should be a district charge. Maintenance of the dam could be a town-wide charge, or the board could make a determination that the costs of the upkeep of the dam could be allocated as to a town-wide charge and a district charge. And that is the sum and substance of the advice that we gave to the board. So again, we do not make it a practice to deliver attorney work product and confidential information that we provide to the board to the public, because it is privileged and exempt under the Freedom of Information Law.
Okay, at the next meeting, I'm going to prepare a series of questions that I will ask at an open meeting and see if I can get some answers. Thank you.
okay. Is there anyone else that would like to be recognized at this time? Well, okay, thank you all for coming. Could I have a motion to go into executive session, please?
Motion to go into executive session?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good. Good night.